Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Canby City Budget Committee to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you will all please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on to roll call of attendance. Tim Dale.
Here.
Tracy Hensley.
Here.
Michelle Hensley.
Here.
Andrea McCracken.
Here.
Sorry about that. I get myself caught on that. I am here, believe it or not. Okay. Greg Parker. Bob Patterson.
Here.
Sarah Spoon is out. Jennifer Trundy
Here.
is here. Sean Varwig, we are thinking he will be out as well. We'll see if he comes in. And then Edward Warnock.
Here.
It's Tracy Height.
Oh,
Tracy Height.
oh, Tracy Height. I saved the best for last. Bam, I put the check down near you instead of Tim. Sorry about that. We'll figure it out. She's got me. She's got my back here. Okay, so with that, we will go on old business. Do we have any questions or comments from the meeting of May 9th?
Mr. Chair, just to give you a heads up, I just received a text from Councilor Varwig. He'll be about 30 minutes late, but he will be here.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so with that, was there any questions, anything under old business from the previous meeting? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to new business. Before we begin, I just want to throw out there to make sure that while we do this fairly informally, if there are questions, please do direct them through me as the chair, and then we will make sure to get them squared away, okay? With that, we will go ahead and pass things. I will pass the baton over to Amanda, who will pick it up from there, I believe.
Yes, I'll pick it up and pass it to Julie. There we
There you go.
See that buck pass really fast. All right. So we have a lot to get through tonight. I'm going to go fast. Stop me if you have questions. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going, okay? So just an overview on the general fund. Rick talked about this last week, that things were pretty tight this year. Departments were asked to make cuts. One area that everyone made cuts in was our travel and training. So any training that was not essential to keep our certifications has been cut out of the budget this year. So those line items are pretty tight. But otherwise, we'll just go department by department. So we're going to start with administration on page 51. So one of the things they did this year was separated out the HR risk management component of administration and made it its own separate department. Did this for transparency's sake, and it's also easier to calculate overhead because HR's calculation is different than what general administration's calculation is. So we can do that easier this year. So that's one change that you will see. Really the big project that's going on in admin this next year is doing codification of the planning department's chapters of the municipal code, getting them all incorporated into the main city's code in one place. So that's their big project for this year. Questions? Okay. Next one is HR, page 54. So we've got some things going on this year. In HR, we've got labor negotiations coming up next year for our AFSCME union group. So that's a big task for Amanda to undertake. Last week, Rick had talked about making additional cuts even after the proposed budget. One of the cuts that he has made is to eliminate our confidential admin assistant in our HR administration department. So that person will be laid off this year. One big cut that we had to take in cutting costs this year was to eliminate our end-of-year appreciation party for staff. We're going to do something, but we won't be able to do something as nice as we usually do. So, any questions on HR? I told you I'm going to go fast. Y'all want to go to see the Blazer game, so. Okay. For finance, again, cutting training, pulled the money out of the budget for national conference, and we always put money in our miscellaneous office equipment line. We have a check printer that's really old that if it dies, we're going to have a problem, but I pulled it. We'll see what happens. We'll keep our fingers crossed. So those were kind of our big reductions for our department. Court. One really interesting thing that they've actually started this year, and they will do more of next year, is they've started a truancy attendance court with the high school to try to get kids who are having attendance problems back into school. So they just started it this winter, and so far it's going well. They've had quite a few kids come through. But the judge is working with them on ways to get them back into class and working with their parents and that sort of thing to get them back into school. So that's a new program that they're going to continue into next year. The other thing we did is we have a part-time position in our court department that when we originally hired it, it was hired at 20 hours a week. And we, over a few years, had some issues with turnover in a full-time position that's also in that department. So we had bumped that position up to just try to keep up with the turnover. And now that we're set and stable, we're bumping that position back down to 20 hours a week. Okay. All right, planning. So most of you will remember last year we had proposed to add a position in the planning department to help backfill and get prepared for the succession planning. And what we did was we backfilled positions to deal with 2 retirements this year that are happening. But the add position from last year we're not actually going to fill next year. We're going to live with the staffing level that we have. The planning department's going to do updates to their land use code. They're trying to get that all taken care of, and they're working on getting a grant to update our street master plan, our transportation system plan. So they're working hard on that.
How many FTE then are in that department?
In planning? 4. They're broken up into various places, but 4 bodies basically in that department.
It says,
Yeah, just make sure that when you do speak, you speak into the mic. So just for the record,
They're not
the
on.
question was, how many FTE are currently in that department with this change will be in that department?
and is that reflected on page 60?
What you see there is 2.2 because those 4 bodies are broken up across multiple funds. So the amount of those 4 bodies that's actually charged to the planning department is 2.2, but there's 4 physical people.
So I'm reminded that this is a budget document and not a personnel document.
Correct. We slice and dice people all over the place. Building, really status quo, no changes there at all for next year. We got our police department. Again, they were asked to make cuts as well. There's going to be no increase this year in their overtime budget. No national conferences. One thing, they're going to purchase 3 cars this year. Normally we do 2, but we're going to do 3 this year. And then, miscellaneous cuts, just like everybody else had to do, supplies, that kind of thing as well.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, could we go into that in a little more detail? I want to make sure that we have full understanding of what the cuts are to the police, so that we don't end up in a situation where I did last year, where I had voted for a budget calling for cuts on something and I didn't know what that was. So especially something as highly visible as the police, I want to be able to walk out on the streets in the next couple of weeks and be able to say, okay, here's actually what happened, instead of being surprised by.
Okay.
I will tell you, there were no cuts to personnel. Okay, so that stays the same. Trying to find my piece of paper here.
And did you have a question? Just, I'll remember.
So each department, when we went through and made our cuts, most departments cut anywhere between 1% and 3% of what their budget was, and that includes the police. Their cuts were 1% of their budget as well, overall. It was low-hanging fruit, things that aren't going to really affect citizen safety. It's more promotional things. No Citizens Academy this year.
See, that's a big thing. That's the sort of thing I need to know about, actually.
Okay. Flowers, things that they normally budget to, if there's a death or that kind of thing, cards, that kind of, really we tried to pick off the things that are not essential before we cut into any kind of bone. So that's really what most of this is.
What was the total amount then for their share?
For their share was 1%. It was about 44,000 in total cuts.
Anything else?
They're all little amounts in various places. There's nothing big.
In terms of what? In terms of what citizens might see, in terms of response time, service delivery, outreach, public relations, that sort of thing?
Nope, they still have money in to do the bike stuff and, stickers for the kids, that kind of thing is still in there. Being able to be at the events, doing safety, that sort of thing, all of that is still included.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, if you look down through here, it looks like, just by the numbers, it looks like grants.
That's revenue.
Oh, that's revenue, whoops. Oh, over here, Deb.
So it's an average of it. Okay.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can go through and kind of compare budget to budgets on the left side, and the proposed is on the right, on the far right.
And this is everybody, not just one.
The big difference in the bottom line is that vehicle lease. We paid off all of our leases, so we're not leasing anymore, we're buying them outright. Otherwise, it's just about the same as it was this year for budget.
And then the vehicle purchases this year, 3 instead of 2?
Yes.
It seems like in a year of constricted resources, we would do the same or less instead of more. What's the rationale for that one?
George?
I can answer a few of these questions if you want.
Would you please answer that one?
First, Chief Smith apologizes for not being here today because he's out of town. So anyways, the 3 vehicles is basically 2 patrol cars that we normally do, and then a detective vehicle this year. The detective vehicle that's going to replace is a Chevrolet Tahoe that has about 120,000 miles. And based on our mechanic, he says it's time for it to be replaced.
Any other questions regarding police? Yes?
Actually, you might be the perfect person to ask this. I had a question about, I don't know what the police term would be for this, but coverage. community is expanding, it's getting larger. We've got more industrial development on the way in the next 12 to 18 months. We've got more residential development on track. How does this budget fit with your increased responsibilities for patrol, for example?
Yeah, so our personnel is not being cut, which is great. So we still have 30 full-time personnel at the police department with 26 full-time officers. So coverage-wise, it's going to be the same. There's no change there. We have anywhere from 2 to 5 patrol officers, depending on the night and the time. We have a minimum staffing of 2 officers at all times. I know we'd like to increase that someday, but, as budget allows. And really, the minor cuts, like Julie said, were material and services. So small cuts in that, just to bring it down a little bit.
Do you have a formula or perhaps a vault of experience that teaches you how many officers you need in a community our size versus the size of our community 18 months from now?
Yeah, so, kind of the, the rule of thumb is basically 2 officers per 1,000. And that's across the board, across the U.S., so each community is different depending on their population, depending on, how many people work or vacation in their town. So we're at about 1.5 or just a little bit below that right now. A little bit below national average, but about average for Oregon.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding police?
I do.
Yep.
So, sand truck,
Yes.
3 cars versus the 2. So the Tahoe that's going out, we just can't stretch another, because usually replacement's right around 100,000 miles on.
Yeah, and this one has about 120, so it's a little bit more.
Okay. Then the Citizens Academy, how long has it been since we've done the Citizens?
So it's been probably about 3 years now since we've done it. And actually, Chief and I have talked about it, even though some of the costs were cut from it, we are still going to try to do it, minimizing those costs.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions regarding police?
Okay.
Okay, then I think we can move on to parks and cemetery.
Yes.
Greg's favorite.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so for parks, fun stuff here. We're really making good use of the parks maintenance fee. Our parks department is just out there getting things taken care of, the backlog that's been there. And this year, we have budgeted to do the splash park. And then they're going to do some improvements in Legacy Park. We've got the safety surfacing that desperately needs to be replaced. It's 12 years old and it's coming apart, so they're going to replace that. And then they're also going to do restoration on pavers that are in between paths and along curbs. They're starting to buckle, so they're going to pull them up, pat down, resand, and put them back. So those are 2 maintenance projects they've got slated for next year. Also, we have budgeted to add an additional truck for their department. With the added staffing, they need another truck to get people around and to get them out working in the different parks. So, any questions on parks?
So how do we justify putting in a splash pad for 400,000 when we're cutting the library and we're cutting other services?
That's a great question. So the splash park is actually paid for with SDCs. You'll see up in the revenue line, there's a transfer in of 600,000. That's for the splash park and for their master plan update. We just didn't get it done this year, so we're rolling it over into next year.
Thank you.
And I would say, just for the folks at home, as a reminder that this brings up a great question, one that comes up a lot of times, is that, look, you've got money here, why can't we use it over there? And it's because those funds and other funds similar to them are earmarked for a specific thing and you just cannot move them around. So, excellent.
Any other?
Greg?
Mr. Chair. Oh.
Oh, well, then we'll come to Tracy. Greg?
Go ahead, Tracy.
You mentioned added staffing, but I'm seeing it actually looks like it's 0.2 persons less this year. So I'm just wondering, is this another budget thing, like are there parks people splitting time with Public Works or something?
Cemetery.
Okay, cemetery. That's what
Yeah.
I needed to know. Thank you.
On page 67, at the top, under revenue, park maintenance fee, between fiscal year 17-18 and 18-19, basically, we doubled.
We only had half a year in 17-18.
And
That answered your question, huh?
Think that took care of it? Bam.
It didn't go into effect until January of that year, that's why. It's a good question, though.
Sometimes it just takes a little push. It's fine. It's fine.
All right, we'll move.
Anything else on parks? Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on to cemetery. No real big changes in here, other than we're budgeting some money this year to do some maintenance on the mausoleum. We've got some doors that go to where they house the equipment that need to be replaced. They're falling off hinges, so they're going to be working on that to get those replaced this year. But otherwise, it's status quo for that department as well.
Question on that. So is that the seasonal tip wages right there? The huge increase, the 5,100 for the maintenance work?
No.
No. What's that huge increase for there?
That is allocating, so between parks and cemetery, we budget to hire 4 temporary employees throughout the spring, summer season to mow, do all that sort of stuff. So it's how we've allocated those 4 bodies between parks and cemetery this year.
Any other questions? Okay, just for the record, we'll let folks know that Sean has arrived.
Welcome. All right, and our last department in the general fund is economic development. Jamie's got some really fun projects she's working on for next year. She's got the downtown strategic plan that they're going to be working on, a heritage preservation plan, which I believe they got a grant for. Yes. And a Canby tourism development plan as well. So a lot of planning is going on right now to set the path for where we're going to go and move forward with our economic development efforts. And of course, they're still going to do Independence Day and all the fun events as well. So, any questions on that?
Remind me which fund the Independence Day event comes out of? Is it the tour?
It's the economic development.
Oh, it's not a certain line. Oh, there it
It's
is.
the third
Yeah.
line down.
Okay.
What is the miscellaneous revenue? If it's not event revenue?
If we get donations, if we just get oddball stuff, we put grants in there if we get a grant.
I was just wondering why you expect it to more than double this year.
Because we got a grant.
But because of the grant that for her heritage thing.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Grant.
Okay. So that is all I have for the general fund. We did all the other funds the other night. So now we get to do the fun part. And it's hard to moderate and keep track of everything. We are going to do our public hearings.
Okay. So this is the one for the state revenue sharing, correct?
What about the non-allocated?
Yeah, we didn't go to page 72.
You know, I think, yeah, I don't think we did cover that.
Sorry.
You just got so excited about handing me this paper,
There's so little in it.
but there's a ton of little numbers.
It's all the revenue. This is where all the revenue goes that's not for a specific department. So our property taxes, franchise fees, things that a specific department doesn't earn, it all goes into the unallocated. we also have in here where we keep our money for retirements and separation payouts, so that individual departments don't have to take huge hits when people retire. We pre-fund this. And then there's our transfer to the library that's in there as well, and then our PEG fees. So if CTV 5 needs to buy any capital equipment, or we need capital equipment for our broadcasting booth, that's where that is charged to.
Now can you cross it off?
Okay.
Thank you.
Why is there a $10,000 decrease in special payments for PEG access?
They made a lot of purchases this year and got things tip-top, so we don't expect that they're gonna make too many next year.
Okay.
We really don't ever know how much. I just throw a number in and hope we're right.
Okay.
Which is why we had to do the transfer last night.
All right.
I had a quick question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Julie, on top of page 72, property tax current, right top line, looks like 4.9 million proposed property tax. Our page 25 summary sheet has close to 5.8 million proposed.
Which page, I'm sorry?
25.
25. Oh, that page, that includes our swim fund as well.
Okay.
This is all city on page 25, so it's both the general fund and our
Gotcha.
swim levy fund.
So that's the, this page is the 3.4886 rate.
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yes. And I will, since you've drawn attention to it, I will talk about the money for the prior year property taxes is half for next year of what it is this year, and that's because there was a Comcast property tax settlement that happened this year that all jurisdictions received additional funds because of a lawsuit that was going on over property taxes for Comcast that we will not ever get again. One time. Okay. This is not your last opportunity.
We're good.
No. Any other questions for that? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to our public hearing. The first will be a public hearing regarding state revenue sharing. I will now open the public hearing on the use of state revenue sharing. The purpose of this hearing is to provide the public with an opportunity to submit testimony concerning the possible use of state revenue sharing funds for fiscal year 2019-2020. The order of business we will follow is in conducting this hearing will be as follows. A, we will receive public testimony. B, the hearing will then be closed and no further testimony will be received. And finally, discussion by the committee will occur. Any interested persons may present testimony. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the testimony forms and submit them to me, the committee chair. The committee chair will then recognize the individual who filled out the form, and any questions should be addressed through me as the committee chair. When you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record, as this hearing will be recorded. Please speak clearly into the microphone. The time limited per speaker will be 3 minutes. I did not receive any forms. Is there anybody with a late breaking form that needs to come up? Okay?
I guess I'm unclear about how many hearings there are. I want to talk about city revenue actually until the next.
This one is on the specific use of state shared revenue. We have another one that's just a generic on the budget as a
So
whole.
there will be two total. I'll wait for the second.
Yeah, so if you look at the agenda, we are in the public hearing for state revenue sharing, and then the next one will be the public comment for the actual proposed budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Anything else? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. Do you have another one for me? Okay, with that, we will go ahead and start the public hearing, the public comment section for the actual city budget. I will now open the meeting to accept public comment on the 2019-2020 City of Canby budget. How we will conduct this meeting: if you wish to speak, please fill out one of the testimony forms and submit them to me, the committee chair. I will recognize those persons wishing to speak, and any questions should be addressed through me. When you come to the microphone, obviously, please state your name for the record, as this meeting will be recorded. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Also, just as to note, the time limit per speaker will be 3 minutes. Seeing that, we will open up the public hearing, and I do have one testimony card here. Okay, that's all jumbled together. Okay, Eric, would you like to come up, please? Let me do this here. Timer. Okay.
Did you start my 3 minutes?
You have, yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late today. So I just wanted to share in this appropriate venue okay, so I'm a certified, ISA certified arborist. I'm also on the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, but I'm coming as just a citizen of Canby. So I just wanted to strongly recommend that City Council and the Budget Committee and City Administrator and anyone else with the authority to make such decisions consider revising policies so that Parks and Recreation would also include urban forestry. Because I think if we're talking about caring for future generations and what the responsibility of the city would be, I would really recommend that trees be seriously taken into account as valuable and priceless life-giving organisms. So that's mostly what I wanted to say in this appropriate venue, that I do think it is relevant to the City of Canby's budget. And I don't otherwise feel like I need to use the full 3 minutes.
Okay. Duly noted for the record.
Got it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I have no other cards. Was there anybody with something burning to say that needs to fill one out? I really don't see anybody else that would fill one out. So I think we'll go ahead and close the hearing and move on to committee discussion. So with that, is there any committee discussion? Yes, Greg.
Julie, I may have misunderstood the opening comments where you talked about travel and training. I thought you said having been cut out completely. Is that for the current year that we are in, ending June 30th, or is that for the proposed year?
It's not cut out completely. What has been cut for next year for the proposed budget is anything that is not required to keep our certifications.
Okay, because I'm going through the different travel budgets, and I'm not seeing a lot of changes, so.
Because most of us only budget what we need for our certifications.
Okay.
You know, there were small areas, my budget, I removed the national conference. I
Right.
don't need that to keep my certification. Planning department, they did as well, remove their national conference. Police department removed their national conference. So it ended up being more that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, because I was keying off of that remark, not what the actual numbers were here. But generally, I have found that training and travel improve the efficiency of an organization. And last night at the city council meeting, we had a budget discussion involving the, I'm going to use the wrong word, budget reconciliation. The right term is?
Budget appropriation?
Budget adjustments.
Yes, the appropriation transfers.
Appropriation transfers, thank you. And within that, and also the earlier discussion about fees and how one of the things that I think is neat is that we have almost a total consolidated fee schedule that can be increased and adjusted each year. Now, the one thing that was excluded out of that was the street maintenance fee, which has not been indexed. So what I asked Julie was, in consultation with the mayor in preparation for our mid-year budget review, to have a discussion about that, almost like putting something on the bubble.
Yeah.
And something that I would like our finance director and our mayor to consider is that when we come up for that review, that we take a look at our financial situation, and if it is at all improved, of training opportunities that might be available with any additional funds that do happen to come into us. That I just think it's kind of demoralizing if it's always rough when you have to take something away. And so I just think a check-in during our mid-year budget, should unanticipated revenues come in, our ending balance be higher, of at least having a discussion on whether we want to add some additional funds into our training budget.
Okay, any other discussion of the committee? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the City of Canby fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and property tax rates to be levied. Now, am I moving this?
No.
Whoever wants to move it, they
Traditionally
need to
have a
read it.
non-elected person.
Yeah, say we prefer
Yeah,
to have
exactly,
a-
that's what I was gonna say. I'd like to entertain a motion for approving the budget. Who would be interested? Go ahead.
I move the Budget Committee of the City of Canby approve the budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year in the amount of $51,769,326, and to levy property taxes for the 2019-2020 fiscal year in the amount of $3.4886 per $1,000 of assessed value for the operating purposes, and 49 cents per $1,000 of assessed value for the swim center local option levy.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. It has been moved by Jennifer Trundy and seconded by Michelle Hensley to approve the city budget. And then just as I reread that, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm just double checking. It's been a while since I've done this. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded that the Budget Committee of the City of Canby approve the 2019-2020 fiscal year in the amount of $51,769,326, and to levy property taxes for the 2019-2020 fiscal year in the amount of $3.4886 per thousand of assessed value for operating purposes, and 0.49 per thousand of assessed value for the swim center local levy option. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those, do we do a roll call with this one? Okay, seeing none, no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? None noted, and the motion carries. The budget is approved by committee.
Okay.
So with that, gosh, there's so many things here. Okay. Okay, the budget committee meeting, well, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the budget committee meeting. It's been moved by Tracy, seconded by Jennifer, right? Yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? None noted. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Don't go anywhere.
No.
Nope, that's right, because we
URA.
have URA.
I think we're going to take a quick break because the camera guy needs to switch over
Yes.
to the URA stuff for the TV, so give us 5 minutes.
So we'll be back in a minute. Or 5.
Welcome to the Canby Urban Renewal District Budget Committee meeting of May 16th, 2019. And we'll start out with a roll call. Tim Dale is here. Tracy Height?
Yes, here.
Tracy Hensley?
Here.
Michelle Hensley?
Here.
Brian Hodson?
Here.
Andrea McCracken?
Here.
Jason Padden?
Here.
Greg Parker?
Here.
Bob Patterson?
Here.
Jack Pendleton?
Here.
Sarah Spoon is absent. Jennifer Trundy?
Here.
Sean Varwig?
Here.
And Edward Warnock?
Here.
Very good. And with the pleasure of the committee, we'll just continue on with the opening ceremonies. We'll write on those. And first up on the agenda is electing a URA Budget Committee Chair for this next year. So I'll open the floor to nominations for chair.
You want to keep the roll, Tim?
No, I'm chair of the Urban Renewal Agency, and so it would be more seemly to have a non-elected person to.
Just for.
All right.
Nominate Jason Padden as chair of the.
Jason's been nominated as chair. Are there any more nominations for the position of chair? Going. Seeing none, I'll close the slate. All those in favor of Jason Padden as chair of the 2019-2020 URA Budget Committee, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? And it carries. Take over, Jason. Next up is vice chair.
Okay, so with that, we'll entertain the motions for vice chair. Are there any?
Nominate Brian Hudson.
It has been moved by Tracy for Brian Hudson. Any other, seconded?
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded by Tracy.
Microphones.
Microphones.
Jason, your microphone's
Oh
on.
my gosh, the microphone, yes. Oh my gosh, you devil machine. Anyways, so it has been moved by Tracy Hensley, seconded by Tracy Height to elect Brian as the assistant chair, or whatever.
Vice chair.
Vice chair.
Can I retract my motion to nominate Jason Padden?
Yeah.
Too late.
It's too late.
He's
It's already
in.
been done. It's already been done. It's done, it's done. Are there any other nominations? Are you sure? It's a hot ticket. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close. All those in favor of appointing Brian as the assistant vice chair, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? None noted, and the motion carries. And now I get all this paper. Oh, no. Okay. So I think, let me make sure I've got my stuff here. What happened?
Do you have the agenda for the urban renewal?
What?
The agenda for the urban renewal?
I don't think I got it.
Approve the minutes.
Okay. See, I didn't have that piece of paper. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and we'll go, move on to old business, and that is the approval of the minutes from the May 10th, 2018 meeting. Is there any questions, any things that need to be noted for the minutes from the previous meeting? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
So moved by Brian, seconded by Tracy to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? None noted, and the minutes are approved. So with that, we will go on to new business, which is to receive the budget message, and I will pass it to Amanda,
Julie's going to do it.
who will pass it to Julie.
Okay, so we've got the urban renewal budget up tonight, and I just wanted to highlight a few things from Rick's budget message in here. The urban renewal district continues to increase as new businesses move to Canby and as the properties are improved. The assessed value has gone up 331% since 2002. The average annual increase in assessed value in the district is 13.5%. For the end of this year, we're estimating that our remaining maximum indebtedness will be about 7.2 million, so that's the amount of money that's left that could be spent on projects if the council or if the Urban Renewal Board chose to do that. And at the end of fiscal year 1920, we're looking at a remaining balance of about 3.7 million. We have a lot of projects going this next year.
So what was that final number at the end?
3.7? We're still on target for paying off all of our debt by fiscal year 26-27. Like I said, we have several projects that are going to continue into next year that we've already started for in the current year, and we have a couple new ones. But overall, the Urban Renewal District is performing well. It's increasing the values, which is what the intention is when you create an Urban Renewal District. So let's go to page 3 under the Urban Renewal budget. Some things I'm going to highlight. We are going to make our final payment to the fire department for capital projects that they are undergoing. I believe they've got another ambulance that they are purchasing, and then they're also doing a remodel at the station itself. So that money will go towards helping fund that. The railroad quiet zone, that is well underway right now and will continue into next year. We might finish it by the end of next year, but it may roll over one more year a little bit. Things always take longer when you have to deal with multi-jurisdictional projects, and you've got the railroad and you have ODOT and then the city. So coordinating all of that takes a while for projects. Signal at Sequoia and Hazeldale. So we're putting a signal in right there at Fred Meyer's. This is going to help with traffic flow at the light at Sequoia and 99. And especially now that Columbia distribution is coming in, there's going to be more traffic. And so this is one mitigation for that traffic, as well as the project to create another access to 99 from the industrial park, which is the next item. We will be contributing approximately $1 million out of the urban renewal to that project of the 99E connection for the industrial park in the next year. We have the Grant Street Arch that is started, and we'll hopefully get that finished up next year as well. One of the new projects is working on the old library. So we haven't had a lot of success getting anybody to rent it or do a development agreement with it. So we're looking at going another path and doing some renovations ourselves and seeing if we can rent it out once it's renovated and make some use of that building. So we're going to put some money into renovations next year. And then, excuse me, and then just continued improvements at Wake Park. Any questions on that?
I have a minor question. You know the Grant Street Arch, that would be located at Grant and First Avenue, right? Right there at that intersection. That's, okay.
Okay. We'll move on to the debt service department. So in the current fiscal year, we had budgeted to pay off 2 loans early this year. And as the year went along, we just made a decision to only pay off 1 because we wanted to keep our cash flow open to work on some of these other projects and get them taken care of. So we paid off 1 of the loans instead of both of them, but that doesn't change our payoff schedule. We will still be paid off by 26-27. It just changes when we pay that second loan off. So that's really the only major change for this year. Again, you'll see in the tax revenue prior year, there's such a difference because of the Comcast settlement in that fund as well. Question?
Okay, so with that, we move on to public comment, correct? So we'll be opening the public comment regarding the urban renewal budget. I will now open the meeting to accept public comment on the 2019-2020 City of Canby Urban Renewal Budget. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the testimony forms and submit them to me, the committee chair. I will recognize those persons wishing to speak, and any questions should be addressed to me. When you come to the microphone, as before, please state your name for the record, as this meeting will be recorded, and please speak clearly into the microphone. All people wishing to speak will have a limit of 3 minutes. Is there anybody with any public out there? Nobody over there? Nobody over here? I think we're good. So with that, I'm going to close it right up. We're done. Done with the public comment. So now we'll move on to committee discussion. Is there any discussion from the committee about the budget? No? Pretty straightforward it is. Brian, did you have something? Huh? Vice Chair?
Sure. The only thing I'll say is that, yeah, it is pretty straightforward, but you look at the projects that we're looking at doing, these are some pretty intense and major projects for the city, and it's a big outlay in terms of funds that we're going to be putting into the city, but the payoff long-term, I think, is going to be pretty grand. It's going to be a great and I think appropriate investment that we're making. So I'm excited to see that we're making some of these things happen.
Excellent. Yes.
I do have a question, and I missed the last meeting, so maybe it was there. But on the old library renovation, the $500,000, which I know I probably should have asked a second ago, does that reflect the grant that was received as well? I don't see where that's reflected anywhere in here.
You're correct. We received the grant after we put this together, so we will have grant revenue to offset some of that as well.
Okay, I thought so, but I just want to make sure it
Yes.
was on the record.
And how much is that grant?
I believe it was 200,000.
200,000, okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close discussion, and I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the budget. Anybody?
I'll do it.
Excellent.
Okay. I move that the Budget Committee of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency approve the budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year in the amount of $9,765,399, and to levy property taxes for the 2019-2020 fiscal year for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article XI, 11? Okay. Of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Andrea and seconded by Edward to approve the, approve the budget committee, or the budget committee of Canby Urban Renewal Agency approves the budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year in the amount of $9,765,399, and to levy property taxes for the 2019-2020 fiscal year for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article 11, there you go, see, of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? None noted, and the motion carries. The budget is approved. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Tracy, seconded by Sean. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any abstentions? None noted. Have a wonderful night, Canby. Thank you for coming
Thank you,
out.
everyone.